It began on a quiet Tuesday night in April 2022. The North Atlantic lay still beneath a black sky dusted with cold stars. Aboard the Norwegian research vessel, RMS Blue, the crew ran routine tests on a deep-sea listening array standard, oceanographic scans, designed to monitor tectonic shifts and submarine traffic. But at precisely 2:17 a.m. GMT, a signal pierced the static. Not sonar, not seismic, a broadcast. Narrowband. Analog. And unmistakably human. 3 short bursts. 3 long. 3 short. Again. SOS. The crew assumed it was interference, some rogue reflection of a maritime distress signal until they traced the frequency. It wasn't modern. It operated on a wavelength phased out by global navies over a century ago. The modulation, the pulse spacing, even the background hiss, all pointed to early 20th century Marconi equipment. One technician, skeptical but thorough, cross-referenced the source location with known shipwrecks, and there it was, 41.7325N, 49.9469W. The wreck of the RMS Titanic. At first, it seemed absurd, a maritime ghost story. But when the signal repeated at 2:17 a.m., the following night exactly 24 hours later, the second curiosity gave way to alarm. This time, the transmission contained more than distress pulses. Through a haze of distortion, a voice emerged. Brittle. Male. Clipped with an upper-class Edwardian accent. "This is Marconi Room. RMS Titanic. Position unknown. Cold. Too cold, we have flooding. Engines gone. Can anyone hear us? Please, respond." The voice faded into static. The recording was sent to Naval Intelligence. At first, they assumed a hoax, a reenactment. But experts in signal forensics disagreed. The cadence, the frequency bleed, the power drop-out curve, all consistent with century-old vacuum tube equipment. And most unsettlingly, the voice did not match any known actor or simulation archive. Speech pattern analysts ran it through a vocal signature database built from surviving Titanic records and passenger voice descriptions. A 94% probable match came back. Jack Winthrop Caldwell, 27 years old, communications officer, assigned to the Marconi Room, reported missing, presumed drowned. But here he was, 110 years later, begging for help from the bottom of the Atlantic. A special unit was formed, silent, classified, nameless. It was tasked not with rescue, but with containment. Because if this signal were real, it meant one of two things: that a piece of equipment had somehow preserved its transmission across a century of pressure and corrosion, or that someone was still transmitting. Neither answer was comforting. The next step was inevitable. They sent a drone. On April 19, 2022, a submersible unit named Orpheus 7 was lowered from the RMS Blue. Its mission: approach the wreck silently, scan for electromagnetic anomalies, and observe the remains of the Marconi Room. As it descended past 10,000 feet, the light faded to ink, and only the drone's floodlamps remained. The silence was complete until it wasn't. At 2:17 a.m., once more, the signal came. But this time, it was not from the original frequency. It was broadcasting directly into Orpheus 7's onboard receiver. Orpheus 7's internal systems flickered as if touched by static hands. The broadcast entered not through its external receivers, but its core control system, an analog voice, encoded in an impossible frequency. Engineers on the surface scrambled to isolate the transmission. They failed. The drone had been hijacked not by signal, but by intention. The voice returned, clearer now. "Can you hear me? We are adrift. Water at my knees." No reply. They said someone would come. It wasn't a recording. The voice responded to environmental changes, temperature fluctuations, current disturbances, and, at one point, the drone's sonar ping. This wasn't an echo. It was awareness. Cognition. The Orpheus camera rotated, scanning the twisted ribs of Titanic's stern. Silt billowed in slow motion. Something else. The drone approached the Marconi Room. What remained of it was shattered, rusted walls, peeling back like the pages of a drowned book. No equipment should have survived. And yet, as the camera panned right, a soft glow flickered in the dark. The wireless transmitter, intact. Wires hanging like veins. One bulb dim, orange, pulsing like a heartbeat. Closer now, the voice returned, cracking through the system with emotion that defied both time and explanation. "This is Caldwell. We held the line, but He mentioned names: crewmen lost before the iceberg struck. He described future events. Another ship will burn above the waves in 12, not 1912. A twin of us. Same shame, same fate. The team cross-checked it. He was referring, somehow, to the Costa Concordia disaster of 2012. That was impossible. Unless he was no longer bound by time as we understand it. They pulled Orpheus 7 back, not out of fear of damage but of contagion. Because the last thing Caldwell said before the transmission cut out was not a plea. It was a question. Is it 2022 up there? They never answered. Back on the surface, the crew reviewed the footage in silence. There, in a still frame, captured as the drone withdrew from the Marconi room, was a reflection. In the shattered glass of the transmitter, a face. Pale eyes, open wide. In eternal panic. Lips. Moving, but not in screaming speech. Mouths formed words long after the signal ended. Some believed it was Jack Caldwell, others weren't so sure. One analyst enhanced the image and noticed something terrifying. The Reflection-S features didn't match any passenger or crew record from Titanic-S manifest, but they did match the young sonar technician aboard the Artemis Blue. The one who went missing just minutes after the drone surfaced. He was never found. The disappearance of sonar technician Elliot Granger was officially logged as lost at sea. The crew held a brief memorial on the deck of the Artemis Blue, but no one mentioned a strange image on the recording, a reflection in the transmitter glass that matched Elliot's face. Suspended in the rust-darkened window of a century-old wreck, Naval Command ordered a total shutdown. Orpheus 7 was locked in a lead-lined container and shipped to an undisclosed location. The data drives were seized, but not before one man copied the raw transmission file. His name was Dr. Lionel Parrish, a linguist specializing in signal cognition. He had worked with the British Navy during the Falklands, and knew the sound of desperation in a human voice. He had never heard anything like this. The voice wasn't just speaking, it was responding, adjusting, adapting. Each new transmission was different in phrasing but identical in timing. 2:17 a.m. GMT, always. Parrish isolated the background hum behind Caldwell's voice, a faint resonance, like metallic breathing underwater. Spectral analysis revealed something horrifying. Hidden within the static were layered fragments of multiple voices speaking simultaneously. Women, children, dozens, hundreds, their tones overlapping, murmuring. One word repeated across every frequency layer. It was not a command, it was a warning. Parrish, now convinced that the wreck of the Titanic functioned not as a grave, but as a kind of broadcast chamber and echo box of trauma, published his theory anonymously in a short academic paper, distributed only among classified networks. He called it residual consciousness retention in submerged catastrophes. According to Parrish, traumatic mass deaths, when coupled with unresolved emotion and absence of closure, could produce temporal feedback, like a phonograph caught in a groove. The ship had become memory incarnate, its last moments playing in a broken loop across time itself. But there was one more detail, a final, terrifying hypothesis. The transmissions were not coming from the past, they were coming from the present. Something, or someone, was reliving the sinking now in real time, every night, every moment. As if time had cracked open at that point, on the ocean floor, as if a tearing causality had trapped part of the human soul in eternal repetition. The final confirmation came not from sonar, nor from radio. It came from the wreck itself. A private expedition in late 2023, funded by an unknown benefactor, reached the Titanic once more. Their live video feed cut out just after midnight, but before it did, for 7 seconds, it showed something impossible. A faint orange light flickering from the Marconi room, and a shadow moving, pacing behind the broken wall, not drifting like debris, walking. One crew member swore he heard music, a piano, barely audible, the same melody played by Titanic's band the night it sank. Nearer, my God, to thee. Except, it was being played backwards. The expedition was never officially registered. No names were released, no footage made public. But 3 weeks after their submersible vanished near the Titanic site, a single package arrived at the British National Oceanographic Archive. It contained a weathered cassette tape, unlabeled, and a handwritten note that read only, "The sea remembers." The tape was immediately It opened with silence, thick, claustrophobic silence, broken only by the faint creaking of metal. Then footsteps, slow, steady, not echoing through steel corridors, as if someone or something was walking not through the ship, but across the memory of it. And then, a voice, not Caldwell's. This time, this voice was female, trembling but lucid. "If you hear this, you must not answer it. The voice is not alone. It learns. Every time you reply, it grows stronger. The wreck is a mirror. It doesn't send signals, it reflects them. And one day, it will reflect back something that was never human." Static drowned the last words. Sound engineers confirmed the tape bore no splice marks, no digital manipulation. The hiss and decay were consistent with analog recordings under pressure, except one thing. The voice's breath patterns did not match those of a living person. There were no carbon sounds, no inhalation, only exhale, a slow, rhythmic sigh, like lungs that had forgotten what air was. Governmental response was swift. Deep-sea research near the wreck was quietly frozen under environmental regulation. Ocean floor activity around the coordinates ceased entirely. But silence is never perfect. Something always slips through. In January 2024, amateur ham radio enthusiasts in Newfoundland reported bursts of antique transmission at 2:17 a.m. again and again every night without fail. When one group triangulated the source, it led them not just to the Titanic coordinates, but 5 miles below them, deeper than any known crevice. The ocean floor no one dared explore. The last known signal came on April 14, 2024, to 112 years to the night the Titanic struck the iceberg. It was one sentence, heard by dozens of amateur receivers across the Atlantic, spoken in perfect clarity and tone. "There are more of us now." Since then, nothing. No signal, no light, no sound, as if the ocean itself had shut the door. And so we're left with questions that tremble at the edges of reality. Was the Titanic a tragedy frozen in time, or was it a fracture point where death lingered too long, where grief soaked so deep it cracked the membrane between past and present? Did the Marconi room become more than a transmitter? Did it become a beacon? Some believe we are only hearing echoes of residual energy caught in a whirlpool of memory. But others fear it's not memory at all, it's hunger. Because if the voices truly remain thinking, waiting, calling, then every reply we send is not an answer, it's an invitation. So if your radio ever crackles late at night, if you hear an old voice whispering, "This is RMS Titanic, can you hear me?" do not answer, because you're not just replying to a ship long dead. You're speaking into a wound, and some wounds never heal.